I don't get motivated by the easy days. I get motivated by the hard ones. Because when it is hard, I know most people have already turned back. That is not a problem for me. That is an advantage. Every time I feel the weight of it, I smile. Because I know that weight is exactly what is filtering out everyone else. The people who needed it to be comfortable, they are gone. The people who needed it to feel good, they quit last week. And now it is just me. And that is exactly where I want to be. You cannot keep living the same way and expect a different life. That is not how this works. You do not get to keep the same habits, keep the same routine, keep the same version of yourself, and somehow wake up one day with everything changed. It does not happen that way. The life you want is on the other side of the habits you have been avoiding. And until you understand that, none of this matters. The 1% habit is not a trick. It is not a shortcut. It is a decision you make every single day to be slightly better than the person you were yesterday. That is it. That is the whole thing. But most people will not do it. And because most people will not do it, the ones who will are going to win. Go quiet. Stop broadcasting your plans. Stop telling people what you are working toward. Stop waiting for someone to believe in you before you believe in yourself. The moment you start talking about what you are going to do, you lose energy that was supposed to go into actually doing it. The most dangerous thing you can do right now is keep announcing your intentions to people who have no skin in the game. They do not have to pay if you fail. They do not get anything if you win. So why are you giving them a seat at the table? Go ghost. Go silent. Go to work. The people who are really building something are not posting about it every step of the way. They are heads down, locked in, and the only update they give is the result. I do not care if they think you are weird for staying home. I do not care if they laugh at you for not coming out. I do not care if they think you are being antisocial or too serious or too focused. When you are up and they are still in the same place, it is going to make sense to you even if it never makes sense to them. This is not about proving something to the crowd. This is about proving something to yourself. Turn the phone off. Lock in. God put something in you that the world needs, and you are sitting here worried about what a group chat thinks. You want to know what separates the 1% from everyone else? It is not talent. It is not luck. It is not connections or money or the right family. It is the habit. It is what they do when nobody is watching. It is what they do when they do not feel like it. It is what they do when there is no reward coming, no applause, no acknowledgement, no sign that it is even working. They do it anyway, because they understand something that most people never figure out. The habit is not a tool you use to get to the life you want. The habit is the life. The person you become through the habit is the reward. Everything else, the money, the success, the recognition, that is just a side effect of who you decided to become. Do you really want it? Not want it the way you want it on a Sunday night when you are feeling inspired. Do you want it the way you want it at 5 in the morning when the alarm goes off and everything in your body is telling you to stay in bed? Do you want it on the days when nothing is working and you cannot see any progress and it feels like you are running in place? Because that is the real question. Anyone can want something when it feels good. The 1% want it when it feels terrible. They show up on the worst day. They do the work on the hardest morning. Not because they have some superhuman ability to feel motivated all the time, but because they made a decision a long time ago that their feelings would not be the boss. There are no traffic jams at the top. You know why? Because most people never make it past the first few miles. In the beginning, everybody starts. Everybody has the new year energy, the new plan, the new commitment. Everybody is in it at the beginning. But one by one, they start dropping off. The ones who need it to be exciting quit first. Then the ones who need to see results fast quit next. Then the ones who cannot handle being misunderstood leave. And by the time you get to the last mile, to the real top of what you were trying to build, it is just you and a handful of other people who refuse to stop. That is the only thing that puts you there. Not being the best at the start, just being the one who would not quit at the end. Ask yourself this question every single night before you go to sleep. Did I get better today? Not did I have a good day. Not was I comfortable. Not did things go the way I wanted. Did I get better? Did I do something today that moved me forward even a little bit? And if the answer is yes, go to sleep knowing you did your part. And if the answer is no, let that feeling sit with you. Let it be uncomfortable, because that discomfort is not your enemy. That discomfort is the signal that tomorrow you need to show up differently. When I was coming up, I had every reason to stay where I was. I had every excuse available to me. I could have pointed at the circumstances and said, look, it is too hard. I could have said, nobody around me is doing this, so why would I? But I made a different choice. I went to sleep when my friends went out. I studied when they were partying. I spent money on what I needed to grow instead of what was fun. And at the time, it did not look like it was paying off. At the time, it looked like I was missing out. But what I know now that I did not know then is that I was not missing out on anything. They were missing out on everything. The fact that it hurts is the whole point. If it did not hurt, everybody would do it. If it was easy, there would be no separation between you and the person who is not willing to sacrifice. The pain is not a sign that you are doing it wrong. The pain is proof that you are doing something most people will not. And on the other side of that pain, on the other side of that discipline, on the other side of that sacrifice, is the version of you that you have been trying to get to your whole life. What is actually stopping you right now? Is it that you do not have enough time? Be honest. Is it that you do not have enough energy? Be honest. Is it that you do not believe it is going to work? Be really honest. Because the number one thing holding most people back is not their circumstances. It is their thoughts. The story they keep telling themselves about why they cannot, why it is too late, why someone else has the advantage and they do not. That story is a lie, and as long as you keep repeating it, it will keep feeling true. Change what you say to yourself, and you will change what you do. Change what you do every day, and you will change your entire life. The reason most people never reach their potential is not because they quit on the big things. It is because they quit on the small things. They skip one morning, they skip the next. They tell themselves they will get back to it on Monday. Monday becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. And before long, the habit is gone and the dream is fading and the person is back to exactly where they started. The 1% do not let that happen. They protect the habit the same way they protect their health. They know that missing once is human. Missing twice is the beginning of a new habit. The wrong one. Most people spend more time planning their vacation than they spend planning their life. They research every hotel, every flight, every restaurant for a 2-week trip. But they do not spend 2 hours a year thinking seriously about where they are going and what kind of person they want to become. That is not laziness. That is misdirected energy. The 1% flip that ratio. They are obsessed with their own growth. They think about it, track it, measure it, protect it, because they understand that the quality of your daily habits is the architecture of your future. And you cannot build a great building on a foundation you never took the time to design. Think about your morning. What is the first thing you do when you open your eyes? Because that first decision, that very first choice of the day, sets the tone for everything that follows. The 1% do not wait until they feel motivated to begin their day. They start their day by doing the thing that builds the motivation. They move first. They work first. They create before they consume. And by the time most people are just waking up and reaching for their phone, the 1% have already done something that moves them forward. The morning is not just about productivity. It is about telling yourself from the very first moment of the day who you are and what you are about. 1 hour. Just 1 hour a day dedicated to getting better at the one thing that matters most to you. That is all it takes to start separating yourself from everyone around you. Not 5 hours, not 10, 1 hour of study, practice, building, creating, learning, moving forward. Do that every day for a year, and you are already ahead of almost everyone. Do that every day for 5 years, and you are in a completely different category. Do that for 10 years, and you cannot even be compared to the person you were when you started. The compound effect of 1 hour a day is something most people never experience, because they never stay consistent long enough for it to actually work. You are what you repeatedly do, not what you plan to do, not what you want to do, not what you talk about doing. What you actually do, consistently, over time. That is the true definition of who you are. And if you do not like the answer right now, you have the power to change it. Starting today, starting with the next hour, starting with the next decision. Not on January 1st, not when things slow down, not when you feel ready. Now, because the right time is not coming. The right time is always right now. Part 2. I had two choices. I could keep doing what I was doing, showing up halfway, giving half my energy, making half the sacrifice, and living half a life. Or I could commit completely, burn the bridge back to the old version of me, and go all the way in with no guarantee of anything, except that I gave everything I had. And I chose the second one. Not because it was comfortable, not because I knew it was going to work, but because I knew that if I did not choose it, I would spend the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I had. Let me ask you something. How many times have you said, "This is the year"? How many times have you looked at yourself in the mirror and promised yourself that this time was going to be different, and then 3 weeks later you are right back to the same routine, the same excuses, the same version of yourself that you said you were done being? I am not saying this to make you feel bad. I am saying it because I want you to see the pattern. Every year, same you. And the reason it keeps happening is not because you are weak. It is because you keep trying to change your life without changing your habits. That does not work. You cannot get a different result with the same daily behavior. It is mathematically impossible. You have to go all in. There is no version of this that works where you only halfway commit. Think about it. If someone else out there is going all the way in on their habits, their discipline, their daily routine, and you are only halfway in, they are going to beat you every single time. Not because they are more talented, not because they were born with something you were not, but because their level of commitment to the daily habit is just higher than yours. And in the long run, commitment always wins. Always. There is no shortcut around it, and there is no trick to get past it. You either commit or you do not, and the results will always reflect which one you chose. You have to stop being driven by outcomes. Stop working out because you want to look a certain way in 3 weeks. Stop studying because you want to ace the next test. Stop building your business because you want to be rich next year. Do all of it because of who you are becoming in the process. Because what you acquire matters far less than who you become while you are acquiring it. The money can be lost. The body can change. The success can fade. But the person you built yourself into through the habit, the discipline, the consistency, that cannot be taken from you. That is permanent. That goes everywhere you go. That is the real return on investment. There is no elevator. Nobody is coming to carry you to the top. There is no shortcut, no hack, no secret that the successful people are hiding from you that would make it all easier if you just knew it. The secret is the work. The work is the secret. And the work is not complicated. Wake up. Do the thing. Do it again tomorrow. Do it when you do not feel like it. Do it when you are tired. Do it when nobody is clapping. Do it when nothing is happening yet. Take the stairs every single time and keep climbing. Imagine you are the hero of a movie. The movie starts right now. Not next year. Not when you get your life together. Right now. Today. With everything exactly the way it is. What would the hero of this movie do? Would they hit the snooze button? Would they scroll through their phone for an hour? Would they skip the workout? Would they avoid the hard conversation? Or would they get up, show up, and do what needs to be done? You already know what the hero would do. The question is whether you are going to be that person, or just someone who watches that person from the audience. It is always you versus you. That is the only competition that matters. The moment you start measuring yourself against someone else, you are playing the wrong game. You do not know their full story. You do not know what they sacrificed. You do not know what they had that you did not. What you do know is who you were yesterday, and the only goal is to be slightly better than that person today. Not dramatically better, not 100% better, just slightly, 1%, because 1% every day adds up to something most people cannot even imagine at the start. That is the math of the 1% habit. Small improvements, every day, without stopping. The comfort zone is the most expensive real estate in the world. It costs you your potential every single day you stay in it, and the price keeps going up. The longer you live inside what feels safe and familiar, the harder it becomes to step out. Not because the world outside gets bigger or more dangerous, but because you do. So slowly you do not even notice. You shrink to fit the space you occupy. Your dreams start to feel more like fantasies. Your ambitions start to feel like things other people do. And before long, you are not even trying to get out anymore. You have convinced yourself that the comfort zone is just who you are. It is not who you are. It is just where you stopped. I trained alone. Most of the time, there was nobody watching, nobody cheering, nobody telling me I was on the right track. I just kept going because I knew that the work was building something even when I could not see it yet. And that is the hardest part of the habit. You have to trust the process before you can see the result. You have to believe in the compound effect before the compound effect becomes visible. You have to keep pouring into something that looks empty for longer than most people are willing to pour. And then one day it is not empty anymore. And what looked like it happened overnight was actually the result of every single quiet morning you showed up when you did not have to. Pressure either builds you or breaks you. The difference is not your talent, it is your habits. The person who has been doing the work every day for 2 years, when the pressure comes, they handle it. Not because they are not scared, not because they do not feel the weight of it, but because the work they put in has built something inside them that holds up under pressure. And the person who has been avoiding the work, who has been coasting, who has been choosing comfort every time there was a choice, when that same pressure comes, they fold. Not because they are a bad person, but because they have nothing built inside to hold up against it. The habit is not just about external results. It is building something internal that you cannot fake and you cannot rush. Do you know what overnight success actually looks like from the inside? It looks like months, sometimes years, of working with no visible result. It looks like days where you are not sure it is working. It looks like staying in when everyone else is out. It looks like choosing the boring, unglamorous, invisible work over and over again. And then one day something shifts. Something breaks through. And from the outside, everyone calls it overnight success. But you know what it actually was. It was the habit paying off. It was the compound interest on every small decision you made when nobody was watching. You did not get lucky. You just refused to stop long enough for the results to catch up. You can either wake up tomorrow and choose to be different. Choose to commit to the one thing you have been putting off. Choose to protect the habit instead of making excuses for why you broke it. Or you can wake up and do exactly what you have been doing. And 3 years from now, you will be in the exact same place asking yourself why nothing has changed. That is the choice. It is not dramatic. It is not a big life moment. It is a simple daily decision that most people treat like it does not matter. But it is the only decision that actually matters. Because who you are in 3 years is being decided right now. Not by your goals, by your habits. There is a payoff for the hard work. It might not come today. It might not come this month. But it is coming. If you have the understanding to keep going when everything in you wants to stop, something will shift. You will start to see it. The results start small, then they build, then they accelerate. And the people who stuck it out will look back and understand that every hard day was necessary. Every boring day was necessary. Every day where nothing seemed to be happening was part of building the foundation. And when the foundation is strong enough, the building goes up fast. If you are going to fail, fail forward. If something does not work, learn from it and try again faster. Do not take 2 years to try one thing and quit when it does not work. Try it, learn, adjust, try again. The people who move fastest are not the ones who never fail. They are the ones who fail fast and learn fast and keep going fast. The habit of learning from failure is just as important as the habit of showing up. Because you will fail. Everybody does. The question is whether you let it end you or teach you. You forgot who you are. Somewhere along the way, in all the noise, in all the comparison, in all the doubt and the setbacks and the days where nothing went right, you forgot what you are actually made of. You forgot what got you this far. You forgot that you have already survived things that would have stopped other people. And that survival was not an accident, it was your character. It was the thing inside you that refuses to be finished, even when everything on the outside says it is over. Do not let anyone take that from you. Do not let the world convince you that you are less than what you are. You have not forgotten everything. You just need to remember. Part 3. You can just start, right now. Tired, confused, uncertain, without all the answers, without the perfect plan, without the right conditions. You can just begin anyway. Because if you are waiting for someone to come along and hand you the moment, sometimes you are going to be waiting your whole life. The perfect conditions are not coming. The perfect moment is not coming. But you are here right now, and that is enough to take one step forward. Just one, and then another. That is all the habit is. One step, repeated, every day, until one day you look back and realize how far you have actually come. What a privilege it is to be tired from the work you once prayed to have the opportunity to do. What a privilege to feel the weight of the growth you dreamed about when you were stuck. What a privilege to be challenged by a life you built on purpose. Most people never get there because most people never start building. They are too busy waiting for the privilege without being willing to pay the price that comes before it. But if you are willing to show up every day, if you are willing to protect the habit even on the days it costs you something, you will get there. And when you do, the tiredness will feel like the best thing in the world. I am unbeatable, not because I never lose, not because everything goes right, but because I have made a decision that no matter what happens, I will get back up. You can knock me down, you can take away the result, you can make the road harder and longer and more painful, and I will still be here tomorrow, still doing the work, still showing up, still committed to the habit, because that is not something that can be taken from me. Nobody can take away my decision to keep going, and as long as I keep that decision, I have already won something more important than any single result. Never say you cannot do something. Say you have not done it yet. That one word changes everything. Yet. It means it is still possible. It means the story is not finished. It means the version of you that does the thing is still an option. Most people close the door on themselves before anyone else has a chance to. They say I cannot, and then the cannot becomes a wall, and the wall becomes real, and now they are standing on the wrong side of a wall they built with their own words. Change the words. Say I have not done it yet, and then go do it. I have never met a single person who became truly successful without first suffering, sweating, sacrificing, staying focused, fighting through the hard moments, and refusing to quit even when every part of them wanted to. Not one. Every person who has built something real has a story about the period where it looked impossible, about the period where they were not sure they were going to make it, about the period where nobody believed in them, and the results were not showing up, and the doubt was louder than the faith. The 1% habit does not protect you from that period. It gets you through it. Grow in silence. You do not have to tell anyone that you have started. You do not have to announce the habit before you have built it. You do not need validation before you begin. The moment you share your plans with the wrong person, they put doubt in the soil where your idea was starting to grow. They say, "Are you sure about that?" They say, "What if it does not work?" They say, "I know someone who tried that and it did not go well." And suddenly the seed that was beginning to take root is sitting in poison. Guard what you are building. The right people will see it when it is ready. Until then, keep your head down and do the work. Let me tell you what mediocrity feels like from the inside. It feels good. That is the problem. It feels comfortable. It feels safe. The people around you when you are living a mediocre life are supportive in the worst possible way. They make you feel okay about staying small. They tell you it is fine. They tell you that not everyone has to go all the way. They give you permission to stop trying when things get hard. And the reason they do it is not because they hate you. It is because your discomfort makes them uncomfortable. If you grow, they have to face the question of why they did not. So they keep you comfortable. And the most dangerous thing in the world is a comfortable environment that stops you from becoming who you were supposed to be. The other 99% of people have already decided they cannot do great things. So they aim for the middle. They set small goals that they know they can hit. They find other people who are doing the same and they call it normal. And here is the truth that nobody likes to hear. That makes it incredibly easy for anyone willing to do more. If you are willing to show up when others do not, you are already ahead of most of the competition. Not because you are more talented, because you are more consistent. The bar is on the floor. Most people are not doing the work. If you just do the work, day after day, without quitting, you are already in the 1%. You do not have to be the best. You do not have to be the most talented person in the room. You do not have to have the best circumstances or the most resources or the longest head start. All you have to be is the most consistent. That is the one advantage that is available to every single person who decides they want it. Not talent, not luck, not timing. Consistency. The person who shows up every day for a year always beats the person who shows up brilliantly once a month. The person who builds the habit and protects it always outlasts the person who makes big moves every few months and then disappears. Consistency is not glamorous, but it is the only thing that truly compounds. And in the end, it is the only thing that truly wins. Nobody cares about your plans. Nobody cares what you intend to do. Nobody cares about the vision board on your wall, or the journal entry you wrote on January 1st, or the conversation you had with your friend about how this was going to be your year. What people respond to is results. What the world rewards is action. Every time you say you are going to do something and then do not do it, your own brain starts to believe you. Your word loses weight. You stop taking yourself seriously. And when you stop taking yourself seriously, the habit never has a chance to build. So stop talking, start doing, and let the work speak for you when the time comes. There comes a point, and you will know when it happens, where being mediocre becomes so painful that you cannot stand it for one more day, where the gap between who you are and who you know you could be becomes so wide that it physically hurts to look at. That is the moment. That is when people change. Not when they read the right book, not when they hear the right speech, when the pain of staying the same finally outweighs the pain of changing. Some people reach that point early, some people reach it late, some people never reach it at all. But if you are watching this right now, if these words are landing somewhere real inside you, maybe you are already there. Maybe today is that day. In order to become the person you want to be, you have to let go of the person you have been, not partially, completely. Because if the old version of you is still around, it is going to pull you back. It is going to whisper the old excuses. It is going to remind you of every time you tried and it did not work. It is going to tell you that you are not the kind of person who does this. And the only way to stop that voice is to keep moving until the new version of you is so much stronger than the old one, that the old one has no power left. That does not happen by thinking about it. It happens through the daily habit, through the repetition of showing up as the new version, until the new version is no longer new. It is just you. You have to understand that time is the thing you cannot get back. Not money, not energy, not opportunities. Time, every day you spend living in a way that does not align with who you want to become, is a day that is gone forever, and you cannot get it back. You cannot undo a year of avoiding the habit. You cannot undo 5 years of choosing comfort over growth. You can only start now and make now count. Study for 20 years, work for 40 years, get 5 to 10 years of actual freedom, and then it is over. That is the math for most people. And if that does not light a fire under you, nothing will. You do not have as much time as you think. Start now, not soon, now. 75 years. That is all you get if you are lucky. 75 winters, 75 summers, 75 chances to do something with the time you were given. When you put it that way, it does not feel like very much, and it is not. So the question is not whether you have time to build the habit. The question is whether you can afford not to. Every day you wait is a day you are borrowing against a loan you can never repay. Every week you put it off is a week gone from a total that is already smaller than you think. Stop treating time like it is infinite. It is not. Treat it like what it actually is, the most valuable thing you have. There is something so powerful about the early hours of the day, before the noise starts, before the notifications come in, before the world begins pulling your attention in every direction. In those first hours, it is just you and the work. No distractions, no social pressure, no one watching or judging or expecting anything. It is the purest form of the habit, just you, alone, doing the thing because you chose to. If you can build the discipline to use those early hours for growth instead of consumption, you will unlock something in yourself that most people never find. It is not about waking up early to impress anyone. It is about using the silence before the world wakes up to become the version of yourself that the world has not seen yet. The bill for regret is the most expensive bill you will ever pay, and you do not get it until it is too late to pay it any other way. The person who spent 20 years avoiding the habit, the discipline, the hard work, does not feel the full cost until they are looking back and seeing what their life could have been. And by then, there is nothing to do but live with it. The 1% habit is not just about success. It is about sparing yourself from that bill. It is about being able to look back and say, I showed up, I did the work, I did not waste the time I was given. That is worth everything. The wealthiest place in the world is the graveyard, because in the graveyard you will find every book that was never written, every business that was never started, every dream that was buried before it ever saw the light of day, and all of it is there because someone was too scared, too comfortable, too unsure, too worried about what other people would think. But here is the thing, you are not in the graveyard yet. You are here right now, with time still on the clock, with the option to begin, with everything you need to take the first step. The habit you start today is the answer to all the potential sitting in that graveyard. Do not add yours to it. Preparing to do the habit is not doing the habit. Reading about the habit is not doing the habit. Watching videos about the habit is not doing the habit. Writing your goals in a journal is not doing the habit. Telling your friend about the habit is not doing the habit. Buying the book about the habit is not doing the habit. Thinking about the habit is not doing the habit. Planning the perfect time to start the habit is not doing the habit. Feeling motivated about the habit is not doing the habit. Hating yourself for not having built the habit yet is not doing the habit. Comparing your progress to someone else is not doing the habit. The only thing that is doing the habit is doing the habit. Every single day, without waiting for the perfect conditions, without waiting to feel ready, without waiting for someone to believe in you first, just doing it. That is the whole thing. One day or day one. Those are the only two options. One day I will get serious. One day I will build the routine. One day I will stop making excuses and actually commit to the life I say I want. One day, one day, one day. And the years pass, and the one day never comes, because one day is not a real day. One day is a story you tell yourself to make peace with not starting. Or, day one. This is day one. Right now. Today. Not a perfect day. Not an ideal moment. Just the decision that from this point forward, you are the person who does the work. You are the person who builds the habit. You are the person who shows up even when it is hard. Day one. This is day one. These are the years you cannot get back. The time you are spending right now is time that is gone the moment it passes. And the earlier you get into the habit, the further the compound effect takes you. The person who starts at 25 and stays consistent will be in a completely different place at 40 than the person who started at 35. Not because they are smarter, not because they are better, but because they gave the habit more time to work. You want a different life? Give the habit more time. You want things to change faster? Start earlier. Start now. Give it time and do not stop. Life is not going to happen later. It is happening right now. The dream is not waiting for you on the other side of some future date. The opportunity is not sitting around until you feel ready. What you do today is what your life is made of. Not what you plan to do. Not what you intend to do. What you actually do. And when you look back, you are going to see that the life you built was built one habit, one day, one decision at a time. Make those days count. Start the habit. Protect the habit. Show up for it even when every part of you says, not today. Because not today is how ordinary lives are built. And you were not made for an ordinary life. The one thing you have to carry with you through everything is this. No matter what is in front of you, no matter how hard the road gets, no matter how long it has been, and how little you have to show for it yet, you must keep going. Staying hard is the habit above all habits. Not because it feels good, because it builds the person who can handle what is coming. Every time you push through when you wanted to quit, you are building something inside yourself. A kind of strength that does not come from the gym, or from books, or from motivation. It comes from the accumulated experience of choosing to move forward when moving backward would have been easier. Stay hard, keep going. The habit is the way, and the way is worth it. Nobody warned you the price was this high. Nobody pulled you aside and said, look, that life you keep thinking about, the real one, the free one, it is going to take everything. Not just your nights, not just your weekends, everything. They sold you the result, the car in the driveway, the number in the account, the guy standing at the top with his arms out like he just landed there. But nobody showed you what was burning at the bottom of that mountain. Nobody showed you the smoke, and that is not an accident. The people who already paid the price do not advertise the cost, because if they did, the 99 would never even try, which is fine for them, but not for you. You needed to know, and now you do. So stop acting like you didn't just read that. The price is everything, and the question is whether what is waiting on the other side is worth it. You already know the answer. That is why you are still here. Right now there are people in your circle who think you have lost it. They whisper that you are taking this too far, that you are obsessed, that you are missing out on your life. And maybe they are not wrong that you are obsessed. But here is the part they cannot see. Your hunger makes them uncomfortable because it reminds them of something they gave up. You are a mirror, and they do not like the reflection. So let them look away. Normal people are going to die with normal regrets. That is not a judgment, it is just math. You were not built for that equation. You already feel it. That thing in your chest that will not go quiet, no matter how many times you try to talk yourself down from it. That is not a problem with you. That is the whole point of you. And look, it is going to keep being uncomfortable for a while. The people who love you are going to keep asking if you are okay, if you are sure about this, if you have really thought it through. They are not enemies. They are just scared for you, because they care about you in the version of your life they understand. The version you are building is one they have not seen yet, and the gap between where you are and where they can see you going is going to feel like distance between you. That is the cost too. Nobody puts that one in the poster. You have been asking yourself why this hurts so much, why it feels like you are pushing against something that will not move, why other people seem totally fine with their little corner of life while you feel like you are choking inside yours. That gap, that distance between the life you are living and the one you know you are supposed to be living, that is not going to close by itself, and you cannot carry both versions with you. The old one is too heavy. You are going to have to put it down. At some point you have to stop hedging. Stop keeping 1 foot back just in case. Because that 1 foot back is the reason you have not moved forward all the way. Those boats on the shore behind you, your brain knows they are there, and it will use them. Every single time it gets hard, it will point at them and say you can always go back. And until those boats are gone, that option is going to stay alive in your head and fight you for the rest of your life. Stop waiting for someone to tell you the real cost. Nobody is going to. The 1% will not advertise this. The price is not just sleep and time. It is the version of yourself that your old friends recognized. It is the relationships that could not keep up with where you were going. It is the comfort you had, the safety you felt, the soft ceiling that kept you from embarrassing yourself by wanting too much. That is what actually burns. And yeah, it is going to hurt when it goes. But the other option is staying on that island for the rest of your life and watching everyone else leave without you. That is the thing you actually cannot live with. 1 out of 100. Sit with that. 1 person out of every 100 people alive right now is going to reach real financial freedom before they die. 1. And it has almost nothing to do with talent. The world is full of talented people going nowhere. It has almost nothing to do with luck or timing or who your parents were. 1 person out of 100 pays the full price. The other 99 find a version of the deal that costs a little less. They keep 1 foot in. They hold on to the boats. They tell themselves they will go all in after this next thing settles down. And they die on the island. Same spot, different year on the headstone. Now here is the thing about that number that nobody talks about. Most people hear 1 out of 100 and think about the 99. They look at the odds and they use them as a reason to stay put. But the 1% does not think about the 99. They think about the 1. They decide they are the 1 before there is any evidence that they are, before the results show up, before anyone else believes it. They just decide, and that decision, made before the proof exists, is what creates the proof. You have to choose to be the one before you look like the one. There is no other order. Look at the people you grew up with. Be honest. How many of them are where they said they would be? How many of them are living the life they talked about when they were 19 and still believed anything was possible? Most of them are doing the exact same thing they were doing 5 years ago with a slightly heavier set of excuses. Same apartment, same complaints, same Sunday night dread. Not because they are bad people, not because they are lazy, because they wanted the destination but kept the boats. You cannot want the other shore and refuse to leave this one. The ones who actually get there are not the sharpest people in the room. They are not the most connected. They did not have more to work with than you do. They just made a decision that had no door behind it. A decision so committed that going back stopped feeling like an option and started feeling like dying. From that moment, every day was aimed at one thing. Not because they never doubted, not because they never got scared, because the moment they made that decision, scared was no longer a reason to stop. It was just the weather. And this is the thing most people will never admit to themselves. They have not made that decision yet. They have made a softer version of it, a provisional version, and I will see how it goes version. And that provisional thing, that slight hedge they kept in the back of their pocket just in case, is what has been quietly undercutting everything they have been trying to build. You cannot build something real from a provisional commitment. You build from the permanent ones. Here is what sacrifice actually looks like when you strip the poetry off it. It is 5:30 in the morning and your body is still heavy and you get up anyway. It is a Friday night when your phone is going off with invitations and you close it and go back to the thing you were building. It is watching a friendship quietly die not because you fell out but because you went somewhere the other person did not want to follow. That is not in the speech version. The speech version makes sacrifice sound heroic. The real version is just quiet, repeated, invisible to almost everyone around you, and you do it again tomorrow. I do not drink. I do not go to clubs. I am not out here watching 3 hours of whatever everyone is watching and calling that recovery. Not because I think I am better than people who do, but because I know exactly what I am trying to build, and I know what that building costs, and I settled that deal with myself a long time ago. When people notice and ask why, they say it like something is wrong with you, like you have a problem, and they are not completely off. You do have a problem. Your problem is that you cannot stop caring about this. You cannot turn off the part of you that wants it so badly it keeps you up at night. And you know what? Good. That problem is the only thing separating you from the person you are trying to become. The people who have no problem with average are going to be perfectly comfortable forever. But they are not going to build anything. And you did not come here to be comfortable. You came here to build. So stop apologizing for the problem and start using it. They do not tell you this part. The lonely part is not the top. The top is actually fine. The part that hollows you out is the climb. Middle of the climb, nobody is clapping. Nobody is in your corner. The people who will throw you a party when you get there are mostly the same ones who thought you were wasting your time while you were getting there. And you have to be okay being misunderstood for a long time. Because what you are doing right now does not have a clean explanation that makes sense to someone who never made the same call you made. You burned the boats. They are still on the shore. They are looking at the water wondering if crossing was worth it. You already know. Keep your head down and row. And when the doubt creeps in, when the quiet gets too loud and you start wondering if the people on the shore were right, remember this. They are still on the shore. That is the answer. Whatever they have, whatever version of life they chose to keep, they are still standing in the same spot. You are moving. That is the difference between you and them right now. Movement, direction, and it costs the loneliness. Most people think the sacrifice is a stretch, a difficult season you grind through, and then come out the other side. No, if you still think like that, you have not really committed yet. The discipline is not something you do until things get easier. It becomes who you are. The standards you hold yourself to are not a temporary thing you adopted because you heard a good speech. They are the floor. They are the permanent floor of the new version of your life. And the work of staying on that floor, day after day, especially on the days when nobody is watching and nothing is working, and you have every excuse in the world to slip. That is the actual work, not the hustle content, not the early morning posts, the private decision you make over and over again to not take the exit. I do not care anymore if they think it is strange that I am not there. I stopped caring when I realized that in 5 years I was going to be somewhere they could not reach, not above them. I am not talking about that. I mean a version of life they chose not to build. And everything I am right now, the early mornings, every no I said to something that felt good but was not great, every moment I chose the work over the ease of not doing the work, I paid that price in private, in small, quiet, repeated moments that nobody saw. That is what the cost actually is. And I would do it all again without a second thought. They will never say it to your face. But when you leave the room, they call you delusional. They say your goals are too big, that you are setting yourself up for a fall, that there is something slightly off about the confidence you walk around with. And honestly, they are right. You are delusional. But here is the thing they do not understand about that. Every person who has ever built something that mattered was called delusional before it existed. The dream always looks like a joke from the outside right up until it does not. And the only ones who think big things look crazy are the ones who decided small was safer. That is their choice. It does not have to be yours. Stop trying to build something that other people can follow in real time. Stop explaining the vision in a way that needs to make sense to someone who is not going where you are going. You do not need them to see it. You need to see it so clearly that their doubt cannot find purchase. When you have that kind of locked-in certainty, when you can look at something that should not work according to anyone around you and say, "Watch me," that is not ego. That is the bare minimum requirement for doing anything worth doing. Approval is not coming before the result. Never has been. Never will be. God did not put that hunger in you to embarrass you. He did not wire that restlessness into your chest so you could spend your life managing it and keeping it quiet and pretending you were okay with less. That burning feeling, the one that keeps waking you up at 3 in the morning with a head full of ideas you have not moved on yet, that is not anxiety. That is direction, and the direction is forward. Not after things calm down. Not when you are more ready. Forward now. You do not build the life that is supposed to be yours by waiting until it feels reasonable to reach for it. And here is the thing about readiness. It is a feeling. It is not a state of preparation. It is an emotion your brain manufactures to keep you from taking a risk that might hurt. Nobody who ever did anything real waited until they were ready. They were terrified, prepared as they could get, and they went anyway with their hands shaking. That is what going looks like. Not confident, just committed. Be so obsessed with where you are going that people get a little uncomfortable when you start talking about it. Be the one in the room who moves differently, talks differently. Something behind the eyes that makes people feel like you already know something they have not figured out yet. And the reason they feel that is because you do. You know the boats are gone. You know the shore is behind you and you cannot see the other side yet, but you are rowing anyway. That kind of certainty does not come from a good week. It comes from a decision that closed the door. Make that decision, and the way you carry yourself changes before anything else does. What exactly are you protecting right now? That is a real question. You say you are scared to go all in. Fine, but all in from what? What is the current version of your life that you are so afraid to risk? The job that takes your mornings and gives you back a number that does not change what your life looks like? The routine that has you feeling like a version of yourself from 6 years ago? The safety of knowing that at least this, whatever this is predictable? Because that safety is not safe. That is just a slow version of the same problem you are trying to avoid. Comfortable enough to stay, uncomfortable enough to keep you up at night. Yes, you should be scared of going for it. That fear is real, and I am not going to tell you it is not. Pouring everything into something and watching it not work is a real possibility you have to carry. But in 20 years, you sitting in whatever life you ended up in, it is not the failures that eat you. The failures you can live with. The what if is the one that does not stop. The version of your life that you could see clearly and that you never tried to reach because the water looked too cold. That is the thing that sits in your chest at 2 in the morning when the house is quiet and everybody is asleep. Not the tries that did not work, the one you never started. And here is what I want you to really understand about that. You can predict right now which one is going to haunt you. Not guessing, you already know. Because the things that haunt people are never the things they tried and failed at. People move on from failure. People cannot move on from the thing they were supposed to do and chose not to. So if you already know which one haunts you, you already know what to do. The only question left is whether you are going to do it. Is it really a risk if the life you are risking is one you already do not want? Stop calling it a risk. You are sitting in a situation you want out of and calling the door a threat. If things stay exactly the way they are in 5 years, if you wake up 5 years from now in the same bed doing the same thing with the same ceiling above you, how does that sit? How does that actually feel to think about? Because you traded years for stability. You paid with the best time you had, and you knew the whole time that you had something more in you. You will not be able to sit with that. You should not be able to sit with it now. Go. Not when it feels right. Not after one more thing lines up. The right time is a story people tell themselves to make the not going easier. Go with what you have right now. Go scared. The people who built anything real were terrified. They just decided that the terror of staying was worse than the terror of going. They burned the boats not because they were certain, because they were more afraid of who they would become if they did not. And that is the line you have to find. Not the line where it stops being scary. It never stops being scary. The line where the fear of staying put is bigger than the fear of failing. Once you cross that line, the decision makes itself. You stop thinking about whether to go, and you start thinking about where. That shift in the question is everything, because you cannot answer both at the same time. And as long as you are still deciding whether to go, you have not actually left yet. And if you have nothing right now, good. Nothing to lose is a real advantage, and almost nobody treats it that way. You are starting from a hole, and you think that means wait. It means go. The worst case of going all in is you end up back at the start, and you already know how to survive there. But the best case, if you stay, if you do not quit, if you burn every boat and keep building even when nothing is coming back yet, the best case is a life that nobody around you can explain. They will call it luck. You will know what it actually was. Now the daily. Because this is where most people fall apart. Not at the decision, not at the sacrifice. Monday morning, the speech is gone, the fire is a little quieter, and they do not know what to do with their hands. The problem is not the motivation. The problem is that motivation was never supposed to be the engine. It is just the ignition. You need something that runs after the spark is gone. And what runs after the spark is gone is a system. A standard, a daily, not a mood, not a feeling. A repeated action you do regardless of how inspired you are on any given morning. Because some mornings you are going to wake up and feel nothing. No fire, no clarity, just the weight of everything and a list of things that need to get done. And on those mornings, the people who only run on motivation stay in bed. The people who built a daily, a real one, get up and get to work. And that is the entire difference between having a good few weeks and actually building a life. 1%, every day. Do you know what that compounds into? 72 days and you are twice as good as you were when you started. 72 days, not 10 years, not a lifetime of suffering. 2.5 months of 1% better and you have doubled. 0.5% a day, it takes you 144 days. 0.25%, 288. Less than a year from right now, you can be twice the person you are today. Not from one big move. Not from some breakthrough moment that finally changes everything. Just from showing up a little sharper every single day. Everyone wants the big move. The 1% is in a room somewhere getting 0.25% better, while everyone else waits for the right moment. 1 hour a day, 60 minutes of focused work in the thing you are actually supposed to be building. Not scrolling for research. Not planning. Working. Do that every single day, and in 3 years you are at the top of your field. In 5 years people are calling you for advice. In 7 years, you are one of the best in the world at this. 1 hour. You spend more than that watching other people live their version of the life you want. What if those 60 minutes went somewhere else? What would you look like in 3 years? Most people wildly underestimate what something small done every single day turns into, because it does not look like anything for a long time, and then it looks like everything all at once. The process is not going to look like the result. Get clear on that. The result looks clean. The result is the car and the number and the freedom. The process is quiet and repetitive and mostly invisible. Stretches where you are doing exactly the right things and the scoreboard has not moved, where you are working and nothing is coming back yet. That silence in the middle is where almost everyone breaks. That stretch where the boats are gone and the shore is behind you and you cannot see the other side and your brain is trying to convince you that you made a mistake. That is not a sign you made a mistake. That is the price of admission, and that is exactly where you have to dig in harder than anywhere else. You have to learn to read the silence as information. The silence is telling you that you are doing something hard enough to matter. Easy things do not have silent stretches. Only the ones worth doing do. And the silent stretch is not permanent. It just feels that way when you are in it. Stay in it. Do the work in it. And trust that the other side of the silence is where the compounding finally becomes visible. Work. Nothing. A little better. Work. Nothing. A little better. Work. And then a door opens. Something cracks. Something that you were building in the dark becomes visible. And suddenly it looks like it happened overnight. It looks like luck. You and I both know what it actually was. It was every morning you chose the work when the work was the hardest thing to choose. It was the long stretch of nothing. It was staying on course when there was no compass and no trail, and nothing coming back. That is what the 1% is made of. Not the talent, the stay. Your only competition is yesterday. Not the person ahead of you. Not the one who started earlier. Not the reel in your feed that makes you feel behind. The person who got up yesterday. Did you do more today? Think clearer? Hold the standard one day longer? That is the whole game. And if you do that every day for 5 years, there will not be a person in your life who recognizes the version of yourself you are looking at in the mirror. Not because you became someone else. Because you stopped leaving the best version of yourself on the table. Lazy people cannot start. Weak people cannot finish. People who win cannot stop. You want to know which one you are? Look at your last 30 days. Not your plans, your actual days. The answer is already sitting there. And if you do not like it, fine. The boats are gone. Forward is the only way. Most people are going to hear this and feel something and go back to their lives and do the same thing tomorrow. That is just true. A year from now, same place, different excuse. That is going to be most people. But you are still here. And something about what got said actually landed somewhere real, not in your head, in your chest. Because there is a difference between processing words and actually feeling something shift. And if it shifted, the only thing left is to stop waiting and go. Not later, not Monday. The time is this one. And I want to say something about the people who hear this and feel it and still do not move. They are not weak. They are not bad. They are just stuck in the loop where the feeling of understanding something substitutes for actually doing it. Feeling motivated is not the same as being in motion, and you can feel completely inspired and completely stationary at the same time. You have probably done that before, felt it and stayed. So this time, do not just feel it. Move, today. One real thing. Not a plan, an action. Why not you? Ask that and sit in it, not as a slogan, as a real question. Somebody this year is going to change their life. Somebody is going to look back at this stretch of time and say, this is when it turned. Why is that someone else? What is the actual reason? Not the excuse. The real reason. Because I cannot find one. I have looked. You have a brain that can learn and adapt and change direction. You have 24 hours. You have everything that every single person who ever built a life worth living had when they started. The hours are the same. What you did inside them is different. That is the whole thing. Nobody is coming to hand you the version of yourself you want to be. Nobody is going to show up and give you the permission you are waiting for. There is no permission. There is just the decision and the work after it. Why not you? You have been through things that should have broken you, and you are still standing. Every time you thought you were done, you found something to keep going. You are still here. And you are going to sit there and tell me that the thing that finally beats you is a decision you were too scared to make? No, that is not your story. You know it is not. Why not you? The ones who win felt what you are feeling right now. Same weight, same doubt, same voice in their head pointing at all the reasons it might not work. They moved anyway. They went scared. They built it while they were still terrified it would fall apart, and the compounding caught the work, and the life they were building quietly became undeniable. And the same people who thought they were crazy started asking how they did it. That is where this goes if you do not stop. And I want to be really specific about something here. The difference between the person who builds something and the person who does not is not that the builder was more certain. It is that the builder chose the discomfort of uncertainty over the certainty of not trying. That is the trade. You either sit with the discomfort of going for something you might not get, or you sit with the certainty of a life you already know you do not want. Pick one. There is no third option where everything stays comfortable and the life you want shows up anyway. This does not end with a feeling. It ends with a call. Not the inspired kind you forget by Wednesday. The real kind. The kind where you have actually looked at both sides and you accept the cost. The cost is comfort. The cost is the relationships that were built around an older version of you. The cost is the plan B and the backup and the safety net and the boats. You pay that, and in return you get the only thing that was ever actually worth anything. A life that is yours, built by you. That looks exactly like the one that has been living in your head for as long as you can remember. Why not you? You have the heart, you have the hunger, you have everything you need to start right now, not tomorrow, right now. There is no perfect condition coming. There is no moment where everything lines up and you feel ready and the universe sends a signal that it is time. You just go. You make it final. You take the exit off the table. You burn the boats. You face the island and you start building. Nobody else will. Nobody else can. This belongs to you. The work and the cost and the freedom on the other side. Every bit of it. Yours. This is the moment. You know what you have been putting off. You know the thing you keep almost doing and pulling back from at the last second. Stop pulling back. The shore is gone. There is nothing behind you. Just the water and the island ahead and the work to reach it. You were built for that work. You always were. And I want to be honest about something. You might not feel that right now. You might feel like the person who was built for it is a future version of you that has not arrived yet. But that is wrong. You are not waiting to become the person who can do this. You already are that person. You have been carrying the weight of what you were supposed to build for so long that the carrying itself has changed you. The delay was not wasted time. It was pressure. And pressure does not just squeeze things. It also hardens them. You are harder than you were when you first started thinking about this. Now use it. The moment is now. Not because it is the perfect moment, because you are done waiting for one. The version of you sitting here right now has already made too many deals with comfort. Too many mornings traded away. Too many times being reasonable when you should have gone. Something in you is still awake though. That stubborn part that will not go fully quiet. That refusal to accept that this is just how it is. That is the only thing you actually need. Everything else is just time and work. But you have to stop pulling the seed up to check if it is growing. The ones who almost made it are the saddest story. Not the dramatic failures. Not the big swings that missed. The ones who were this close. Who burned the boats and then built a raft. Who committed and then found a reasonable plan B. And that plan B is the exact thing that kept plan A from happening. Because the exit will always be there if you leave it there. Your brain will always whisper on the hard days that maybe you made a mistake. And if the boats are still on the shore, some part of you will go back. So burn them. Actually burn them. Not in your head, in your life. The lease you sign before you have the clients. The thing you say publicly that makes retreating embarrassing. Every real decision that removes the door behind you. That is what burning the boats actually means. There is a life waiting for you on the other side of a real, final, no backdoor decision. Not a better plan. Not a more prepared version of you. A decision. A morning where you wake up and what you do is what you chose and not what you settled for. Work that is yours. Built from scratch. With your own belief when nobody else had any. That version of your life is not saved for someone different. It is not locked behind a talent you do not have. It is on the other side of a commitment you have not fully made yet. The hardest part of burning the boats is not the fire. It is telling yourself the truth before you light it. Admitting that part of you has been showing up at 60 or 70%. Doing enough to feel like you are trying, but not enough to risk actually failing. That part is not weak. It is scared. It does not want you to give everything and still come up short. So it keeps the boats on the shore just in case. And as long as they are there, you will never find out what you are actually made of. Burn them. Find out. Falling in front of people is not the worst thing. Being forgotten is. Failing publicly is not the worst thing. Never leaving the shore is. The ones who are so afraid of looking bad that they hide, they never get to be seen winning either. The same door that embarrassment walks through is the door that pride eventually comes through. You cannot seal one without sealing the other. So open the door. Let people watch you work. Let them see you struggle and get back up. The person who keeps getting up is eventually the person who wins. And winning in front of people is worth everything it costs to get there. The 1% is not a place you arrive at. It is a standard you hold every single day. On the days you feel nothing. On the days the doubt is louder than anything else in your head. On the days you could justify slipping and nobody would ever know. You do not slip, because you would know. And the deal has always been with yourself first, not with the audience, not with the results, with you. No traffic jams at the end of the race. At the start, everyone is there. Everyone has the journal and the goals and the speech in their head about how this time is different. But further down the road, it gets quiet. People find exits, reasonable ones, justified ones, and they take them one by one, until at the very end it is just a couple of people who refused every single exit. And at that point, the only question is, how fast can you run? I want you to think about the exits you have already passed in your life. The moment you said, I will get serious after this, or I am not ready yet, or maybe this is not the right time. Every one of those was an exit, and you took some of them. Most people do, but you are still here, still asking the question, still looking at the road ahead, which means you have not taken the final exit yet, and the final exit is giving up completely. As long as you have not taken that one, you are still in the race. The question is whether you are going to start treating it like one. Maybe you are not in that last mile. Maybe you took an exit a while back and have been sitting at a rest stop telling yourself you are just gathering strength. You can get back on. The road is still there. The finish has not moved. You are not too late. But this time you stay on. No more exits. No plan B on the side. You commit. You grind. You show up on the days, especially the hard days, because those are the days that decide who is still in it when it matters. 1% better today. 1 hour today. One decision to stay when everything in you says quit. That is the formula. It is not a secret. The secret is that it was never a secret. You already know what to do. You just have not done it without a door left open behind you. Burn the boats. Leave nothing on the shore. Turn around and build the life that has been waiting for you since before you could put it into words. It is time. It was always time. You were just waiting to be ready. And ready is a lie. Nobody who ever built anything was ready. They just went. And on the other side of going, on the other side of the fear and the doubt and the silence and the long stretch of nothing, is the version of your life that you have been carrying around in your chest for years. The one that keeps showing up in the quiet moments. The one that will not let you be fully okay with anything less. That version of your life is real. It exists. Not as a fantasy, as a destination. And the only thing between you and it is the decision to stop treating it like a maybe and start treating it like a direction. It is not the strongest man who wins. It is not the fastest. It is not even the one who works the hardest. The one who wins is the one who has already decided, deep in his mind, before anyone else even stepped onto the field, that losing is simply not an option he is willing to live with. That is the truth nobody tells you. That is the thing they leave out. They talk about tactics. They talk about training. They talk about connections and luck and timing and who you know. But they never talk about the moment that happens inside a man before any of that. The moment a person looks at the world in front of them and decides, quietly, with everything they have, that they are going to dominate it. Most people never have that moment. They go through their whole lives waiting for proof before they commit. They want to see the results first, and then they will believe. They want the win handed to them before they decide they are a winner. That is why most people stay exactly where they are. Not because life is unfair, not because the odds are against them, but because they never made the decision that dominance begins in the mind, and the mind has to move first. Always. Every single time. The mind moves first. You have to understand what you are dealing with. The mind is not just a tool you use to think through problems. It is not a calculator. It is not a filing cabinet. It is a projector. Whatever you load into it, it projects onto the screen of your life. If you load in doubt, you live in doubt. If you load in smallness, you live small. But if you load in the image of a person who dominates, who conquers, who refuses to be second, who shows up and takes what belongs to them, then that image begins to pull your life in that direction. Not slowly, violently, like a current that grabs you and carries you forward whether you feel ready or not. That is what thinking to dominate actually means. It does not mean arrogance. It does not mean walking around with your chest out telling everyone you are better than them. It means the private, daily, relentless work of building the right image inside your own head and refusing to let anything tear it down. It means when you wake up in the morning and the fear is still there, you look at that fear and you say, "Not today." It means when people around you shrink, when they quit, when they tell you to be realistic, you stay in your image. You stay in what you have decided is true about you. That is the work. That is the real work. And almost nobody is doing it. Think about this. Every person who has ever built something great, every athlete who ever stood at the top, every entrepreneur who ever turned nothing into something, every fighter who ever walked into a room and made everyone else feel the weight of their presence, every single one of them had one thing in common before they had any of the trophies or the money or the record or the title. Every single one of them was living in a reality inside their head that had not shown up in the outside world yet. They were walking around in a future that had not happened. They were carrying an identity that nobody else could see yet. They believed it so completely, so stubbornly, so ferociously, that eventually the world had no choice but to catch up to what they already knew. Conor McGregor sat in a little apartment in Dublin with nothing. No money, no car that worked right, no title, no guarantee of anything. And he talked about being champion like it was already done. Not like he hoped it would happen. Not like maybe if everything went right. He talked about it the way you talk about something that is already finished and you are just waiting for the paperwork. People called him crazy. They said he was delusional. And he was. That is exactly the point. The kind of belief that creates dominance looks like delusion to people who have never decided to dominate anything. From the outside it looks like madness. From the inside it feels like clarity. That is what you have to get. That feeling, that locked in, certain, unmovable sense that what you are going toward is already yours. You are not chasing it. You are calling it home. Now let me tell you something about how the mind actually works, because most people have this backwards. They think you believe something after you see evidence for it. You win a few times, then you start to believe you can win. You make some money, then you start to believe you can make money. You get some respect, then you start to believe you deserve respect. That is the order they teach you. See first, then believe. But every person who has ever dominated anything will tell you the same thing. The order is exactly backwards. You believe first. You believe so completely, with so much force, that the evidence has to eventually show up just to keep up with what you already know inside. Jim Carrey was broke. He was a young kid in Toronto whose family had hit rock bottom. They were living in a van. They had nothing. And he would drive up to Mulholland Drive at night and sit in his car and look out at the lights of Los Angeles and talk to himself. Not in desperation, not in prayer, hoping something would change. He would sit there and tell himself that every director in the city wanted to work with him, that he was in demand, that his name meant something. He would sit in that broken car on that hill and live inside an image of himself that had not arrived yet. And years later, It all arrived, because he never let go of the image. This is not a motivational story. This is a law. The same way gravity is a law. The same way the sun rising is a law. The mind creates before the hands build. The thought arrives before the thing. Every single object in the room you are sitting in right now was first a thought in someone's mind. The chair was a thought. The phone was a thought. The building was a thought. Nothing you can touch in this physical world showed up without first existing in someone's imagination, which means the imagination is not decoration. It is the factory. It is where everything real comes from. And if you are not deliberately using it to build the image of your dominance, your imagination is building something else. Fear, doubt, limitation, smallness. The mind does not stop working just because you are not paying attention to it. It keeps building. The question is, what are you letting it build? Most people let their imagination run loose. They do not feed it. They do not direct it. They let their past results and their present circumstances walk in and set up camp inside their head, and those things tell them what is possible. Their bank account becomes the evidence for what they can achieve. Their neighborhood becomes the ceiling on their ambition. Their history of falling short becomes the story they tell about who they are. And the mind, which does not know the difference between a true thing and a deeply believed thing, takes all of that and builds a picture of a small person living a small life and going nowhere particular. And then that picture pulls their whole life in that direction, and they wonder why nothing changes. You have to break into the factory. You have to walk in and fire the workers who are building the wrong thing and replace them with something that serves you. You have to consciously and deliberately load a new image into your mind of exactly who you are and what you are capable of, not who you have been, not what your circumstances say you are, but what you have decided you are going to become. And you have to hold that image. You have to protect it. You have to refuse to let anyone or anything take it from you. That is the foundation. That is the ground everything else is built on. Before the discipline, before the strategy, before the skill, the image has to be right. Because the image is the blueprint, and everything you build will follow that blueprint whether you intended it to or not. Now here is where people get it wrong. They hear all of this and they think it means sitting around thinking good thoughts and waiting for life to deliver the package. They hear law of attraction and they picture someone on a couch making a vision board and expecting a Ferrari to pull up in the driveway. That is not what this is. That has never been what this is. Thinking to dominate does not mean thinking instead of working. It means thinking in a way that makes your work impossible to stop. When your mind is right, when the image is locked in, when you genuinely believe in your bones that what you are going toward is inevitable, your work changes. It does not feel like discipline anymore. It feels like gravity. You do not have to force yourself toward it. You are pulled. You wake up earlier not because an alarm tells you to, but because the thing you are building is real to you and you cannot wait to get back to it. You push harder in the room where nobody is watching, not because someone will see, but because the person in your mind, the one you are becoming, would not stop. And you are becoming that person, so you do not stop. This is what separates the ones who dominate from the ones who just work hard. There are millions of people who work hard. Hard work alone does not create dominance. There are people working 2 jobs right now who are exhausted and broke and going nowhere because their mind is aimed at survival, not at conquest. The mind determines the direction of the effort. You can work with all the force you have, but if your mind is pointed at the wrong target, you will hit the wrong target perfectly. The image has to come first, the right image, and that image has to be dominance. Think about a fighter stepping into the ring. 2 men, same training, same preparation, same coach, same number of rounds in the gym. One of them walks in knowing he is going to win, not hoping, not trying to stay positive, knowing. The other one walks in hoping his training was enough. The outcome of that fight was decided before either man threw a punch, because one of them already won it in his mind, and the other one is still waiting to find out. You can feel it when you are in the presence of someone who has already decided. There is a weight to them, a stillness. They are not nervous the same way other people are nervous. They carry something the other people in the room cannot quite name. What they are carrying is certainty. And certainty is the thing you cannot fake and cannot buy and cannot train yourself into from the outside. It only comes from the inside. It only comes from the image you have been building in the quiet, when nobody was looking. Les Brown said something that stayed with me. He said, "You do not get paid for the time. You get paid for the value. And the value starts in your mind. The way you see yourself determines how much of yourself you bring to anything you do. A man who sees himself as average brings average effort to above average situations and wonders why the results are average. A man who sees himself as elite, who walks into a room already knowing he belongs there, brings a different energy to everything. The conversations he has, the risks he takes, the decisions he makes, they are all different because the image is different. Change the image and everything downstream of the image changes with it. So what do you actually do? How do you build this? Because it is one thing to say the image has to be right and another thing entirely to sit down and change it. Because you have been building the old image for years. Your brain has been running on the old story for a long time. You have grooves worn into your thinking, patterns of doubt that fire automatically before you even realize they are firing. You wake up and before you have even decided to think about your life, the old story is already playing. I am not ready. I do not have enough. This will not work. What if I fail? Those thoughts do not ask permission. They just run. The first thing you have to do is become aware that they are running. Most people go their entire lives on autopilot. Their thinking is unconscious. They believe they are observing the world and reacting to it, when in reality they are running a program that was installed long ago by other people, by old experiences, by failures they never processed properly. And that program is telling them what is possible. It is telling them who they are. And because they never stop to question it, they assume it is the truth. Stop. Right now. That story is not the truth. It is just the story that has been running the longest. And any story that has been running long enough starts to feel like truth. But a lie told 1,000 times does not become the truth. It becomes a habit, and habits can be broken. You break it by replacing it, deliberately, repeatedly, every morning before you do anything else, before you check your phone, before you let the outside world in. You spend time with your image. You see yourself clearly, not who you have been, not who your circumstances say you are, but who you are becoming. You see it in detail. You feel it. You do not just picture a vague idea of success. You see the specific person, the way they carry themselves, the way they speak, the way they make decisions without flinching, the way they walk into a room, the way they handle pressure. You see that person and you sit in that image until it starts to feel familiar, until it starts to feel like home. Bob Proctor spent his life teaching this. He said, write down your goals in the present tense. Not I will be, I am. Not I want to have, I have. Your subconscious mind does not respond to future tense. It does not understand someday. It only operates right now. And if you give it commands in the future, it parks them in the future, and they stay there. But if you speak to it in the present, if you say, I am this person, I have this life, I operate at this level, the subconscious starts to work toward making that real. It starts to filter the world differently. Suddenly opportunities appear that were invisible before. Connections show up. Ideas come. Not because the world changed, because your filter changed. And you are now looking at the same world through the eyes of the person you have decided you are. Write it down. Carry it with you. Read it every day, morning and night. Jim Rohn said if you write a lie on a card and read it often enough, you will start to believe it. And then belief will create the fact. That is not magic. That is not wishful thinking. That is how the brain is wired. The reticular activating system in your brain filters reality based on what you have told it to look for. Tell it you are a dominant person, and it will start showing you all the evidence in the world that this is true. Tell it you are a failure, and it will find evidence of that instead. You get to choose what it is programmed to find. Go into silence. Every day, find 30 minutes where you sit with nothing. No phone. No music, no talking, just sit, and in that silence, Let the image come forward. Let the version of you that dominates come to the front of your mind. See it. Breathe into it. Feel what it feels like to be that person. Coaches will tell you about mental rehearsal, about how the brain cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. Scans show the same parts of the brain fire whether you are actually doing something or imagining doing it with total focus and emotion. Which means every time you sit in silence and vividly imagine yourself dominating, you are literally wiring your brain for dominance. You are building the circuitry. You are installing the software. And when you walk back out into the world, you are a slightly different person than you were when you sat down. Slightly sharper, slightly more certain, slightly more like the person in the image. And over days, weeks, months, that slight difference accumulates into something enormous, something unmistakable, something that other people can feel when you walk into a room before you have said a single word. That presence, that certainty, that is not magic. That is the result of a mind that has been trained deliberately and consistently to see only one outcome: dominance. Tony Robbins talks about how where focus goes, energy flows. That is not a slogan. That is a neurological fact. Whatever you focus on consistently, your brain devotes resources to. If you focus on your limitations, your brain becomes an expert at finding limitations. If you focus on your potential, your brain becomes an expert at finding potential. The mind amplifies whatever you point it at. So point it at what you want. Point it at who you are becoming. Point it at dominance. And keep pointing it there. Every time it drifts back to the old story, you pull it back. Every time the doubt creeps in, you acknowledge it, and you dismiss it, and you return to the image. Not once, not twice, every day, for the rest of your life. Now, I want to talk about something that nobody likes to talk about: the identity. Because the technique is not enough. Writing goals down is not enough. Visualization is not enough if you are still operating from the old identity. If you are still, at the core of who you think you are, a person who does not dominate, then no technique in the world is going to change your results in any permanent way. You can do the exercises and see some shifts, but they will not hold, because the behavior always comes back to match the belief. Always. Joe Dispenza says your personality creates your personal reality. That is the whole game right there. You cannot have a dominant life while operating from the personality of someone who does not believe they deserve dominance. You cannot attract elite opportunities while carrying the identity of someone who thinks they are not ready. You cannot build an empire with the self-concept of a person who is still asking permission. The identity has to change. The deepest belief you have about who you are has to shift, and that shift is the hardest thing and the most important thing. Most people never touch the identity. They change their habits, they change their diet, they change their job, they change their relationships, and they wonder why nothing fundamentally changes. Because the one thing they never changed was the story at the center of all of it. The story that says who I am, because that story determines everything. It determines how you respond to setbacks. It determines how long you stay in the fight when things get hard. It determines whether you take the big opportunity or let it pass, because some part of you does not believe you are the person who gets to say yes to that. Think about the people in your life who have always seemed to rise, not the ones who had everything handed to them, but the ones who came from nothing and kept climbing anyway. Watch them closely. They do not have more time than you. They do not have more talent in many cases. What they have is a different relationship with who they believe themselves to be. When something knocks them down, they do not stay on the ground and update their identity with the word failure. They get up and they say, "That happened to me. That did not define me." There is a difference between an event and an identity. A loss is an event, a failure is an identity, and you choose which one it becomes, every single time. That choice is the whole game. You have to decide who you are before the evidence shows up. You have to become the dominant version of yourself in your own mind, in your own private experience, before the world reflects it back to you. And you have to protect that identity the way you would protect anything precious and irreplaceable, because it is. It is the most precious thing you have, your self-concept, your inner picture of who you are and what you are worth and what you are capable of. Guard it. Be selective about who you let speak into it. Be careful about what voices you let into your head in the morning. Be intentional about the words you say about yourself even when nobody is listening, especially when nobody is listening. Because the way you talk to yourself in private is the most powerful conversation you will ever have. When you make a mistake, what do you say? When you fall short, what is the internal monologue? When you look in the mirror before a big moment, what do the words sound like? Most people speak to themselves in a way they would never speak to someone they loved. They are vicious in private. They tear themselves apart in ways that would horrify them if they heard someone else say it to their child, and they wonder why they cannot get traction. Because every harsh word you say to yourself in private is a vote against your own dominance. It is a hammer taken to the very image you are trying to build. Start talking to yourself like you are someone worth talking to with respect, not in a soft, fragile way, in a warrior way, in the way a coach talks to the athlete he believes in completely. Hard when hard is needed, direct when direction is needed, but never cruel, never tearing down the foundation, because you need that foundation. You are building on it every day. Now let me talk to you about what happens when you have the right image, when the identity is shifting, when the daily practices are in place and the image is getting clearer and the belief is starting to harden into something real. Because this is where it gets interesting. This is where things start to happen that you cannot fully explain. You start to see things differently, not metaphorically, literally. You walk into a room and you notice opportunities that were always there, but you could not see before because your filter was not set to find them. You have a conversation and something gets said that is exactly the thing you needed to hear, and you would have walked right past it 6 months ago, but now it lands like a key dropping into your hand. You start attracting people who are operating at the level you are moving toward, not the level you are coming from, the level you are going to, because you are resonating at a different frequency now. And like frequencies find each other, that is not mystical. That is just how people work. We move toward what we are in harmony with. The synchronicities start. Call them coincidences if that makes you more comfortable. But pay attention to them. The right call comes in. The right door opens. The right person sits next to you on a plane. You were supposed to go right and something in you said go left and you went left, and that is where the thing was that changed everything. People who have decided to dominate, who are living fully in the right image with the right identity backed by daily practice, will tell you the same thing. The world starts to cooperate. Not because the world has feelings about you, but because you have changed the energy you are putting out, the antenna you have become, and what you transmit is what you receive. Neville Goddard said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled." That is not a poetic instruction. That is a technical one. He was saying, do not just picture the result. Feel what it would feel like if it were already real. Get into your body, into your nervous system, into the actual physical sensation of already having dominated, already having won, already being the person. Because the feeling is the frequency. The emotion is the signal you are sending out into the world. And when the signal is strong enough, when you can genuinely sit in the feeling of dominance, not performed, not pretended, but actually felt in your body, that is when things begin to move. People say seeing is believing. That is the old way. That is the way of people who live on the surface of things and never build anything worth remembering. The new way, the real way, the way of every person who has ever dominated their field or their era or their story, is believing, is seeing. You believe it first. You hold the belief until it becomes a feeling. You hold the feeling until it becomes an identity. You hold the identity until the world rearranges itself to reflect it back to you. That is the sequence. That is the only sequence that works. But hear me, because this is the part where people drop off, where they take everything that has been said and they use it as an excuse to sit still and wait for the world to deliver. And I need to be very direct with you about something. The thought without the movement is a daydream. The image without the action is a fantasy. The belief without the work is a story you tell yourself to feel good while other people are out there building things. Thinking to dominate does not exempt you from the work. It amplifies the work. It supercharges the work, but it does not replace the work. The law of attraction does not work without the law of action. That is not optional. That is the whole equation. You see it in your mind. You feel it in your body. You believe it in your bones. And then you get up and you move like a person who has already decided. You move like someone who is not waiting to see how things turn out because they already know how things turn out. And you stay in that movement every single day, through the resistance, through the setbacks, through the seasons when nothing appears to be working, and the old voices come back louder than they have ever been. Because they will come back. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. The doubt will return. The fear will return. The moments of darkness where the whole vision seems impossible and you cannot remember why you started, those moments are part of this. They are not signs that you were wrong. They are tests of whether the image is truly fixed or whether it was just something you tried for a while when things felt good. The image has to hold through the hard seasons. The belief has to be bigger than the setback. The identity has to be stronger than the circumstance. And when you come through those seasons, and you will come through them, you will find that the image is sharper on the other side. The conviction is harder. The person you are is not the same person who went in. You have been shaped by the fire, and you are coming out more dangerous than you were. Jim Rohn said the challenge is not to do something great. The challenge is to become someone great. Because what you become is permanent. What you build can be taken. What you earn can be lost. But who you are, who you genuinely are at the core after years of building the right image and living in the right identity and doing the daily work, nobody can take that from you. That is yours forever. And from that place, everything else can be rebuilt if it ever needs to be rebuilt, because the builder is still there. The mind that created it is still there. The person who knows how to dominate is still there. That is why the most successful people in the world do not panic when they lose, when the business fails, when the championship is gone, when the money is lost, because they know something that people who have never dominated do not know. They know that the external result was always just a byproduct of who they were on the inside, and who they are on the inside did not go anywhere. So the result is coming back. It is only a matter of time. Let me tell you the thing about greatness that scares people. It is not that it is too far away. It is that it is closer than they want it to be. Because if greatness is far away, if dominance is reserved for special people with special gifts who were born under a special star, then you have an excuse. You can say that was not for me. You can make peace with your limitations. You can tell yourself a comfortable story about why the ceiling of your life is where it is. But if dominance is available to anyone who decides deeply enough, persistently enough, completely enough, then you have no excuse left. And that is a terrifying thought for a lot of people, because it means every time you stayed small, it was a choice, not a circumstance, a choice. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. The real fear, the one that keeps people up at night without them even knowing that is what is keeping them up, is that they are more powerful than they have been willing to admit, that if they truly committed, if they truly decided, if they truly let the full image of what they could become take root and grow into something real, there would be nothing between them and the life they actually want. And that is frightening, because it removes every excuse that has ever made them feel comfortable about not going for it. You are more than you have been performing as. You know it. Some part of you has always known it. That restlessness you feel, that sense that there is more. That moment in the middle of a perfectly ordinary day when something in you rises up and says, this is not all of it. This is not the full story. Listen to that. Do not silence it. Do not medicate it. Do not distract yourself from it until it goes quiet. That voice is the image trying to come through. That is the dominant version of you knocking on the door and asking to be let in. Open the door. The world does not need another average person who played it safe and lived a careful life and died with their potential still inside them untouched. The world has enough of those. What the world needs, what your family needs, what the people who are going to come after you need, is for you to go all the way, to use the full power of your mind the way it was designed to be used, to stop pretending the ceiling is real, to stop living in the version of yourself that was built by other people's limitations and other people's fears and other people's small ideas about what is possible. Think to dominate, not as a phrase you say, as a way of being, as the daily practice of loading the right image and holding it and protecting it and living from it, as the refusal to let your current circumstances become the final word on what you are, as the conviction held every single morning that you are someone who wins, who builds, who conquers, who rises, who does not stop, who does not ask permission, who does not wait for someone to hand them what belongs to them. You go and you take it, with your mind first, always with your mind first, because the mind moves first and everything else follows. The fastest way to change where your life is going is to change the picture you are living from, right now, tonight. Before you go to sleep, spend 5 minutes. Do not rush it. Do not do it as a box to check. Sit in the quiet and let the image come. Who are you becoming? What does it feel like to be that person? What do they do in the morning? How do they handle the pressure? What do they believe about themselves? See it. Breathe it in. Let your body feel what it would feel like if that were the only version of you that existed. Because one day it will be, if you choose it, if you protect it, if you refuse to let it go. William James from Harvard said it plainly over 100 years ago. Believe, and your belief will create the fact. Not eventually, not sometimes, always. This is a law. It works the same way for everyone who works it. The difference between the people who dominated their era and the people who watched from the sidelines was never talent alone. It was never resources alone. It was never luck. It was always, at the deepest level, what they were willing to believe about themselves before anyone else agreed. It was the willingness to hold the image longer than it was comfortable to hold it, to stay in the belief when the results were not showing up yet. To be, for a time, what looks like a fool from the outside because you are walking around with a picture in your mind of a future that has not arrived and you are treating it as though it is already real. Most people cannot do that. Most people need the world to confirm the dream before they commit to it. But you are not most people. You are reading this because something in you already knows the world does not get to vote first. You vote first. You decide first. You believe first. And then the world falls in line. That is what winners do. That is what they have always done. They live in the future before the future lives in them. They build the inside before the outside catches up. They think to dominate before they dominate. And then one day, without warning, without announcement, the outside world catches up. The results start showing up. The wins accumulate. The people around them start to say, "You always knew, didn't you?" And they smile because they did. They always knew. They decided, and then they held the decision, and then they moved like the decision was already done. And it was. It always was. The moment you decide, it is already done. The world just has not gotten the message yet. Your job is to keep sending the signal until it does. Think to dominate. Every day, every morning, every quiet moment you can find. Think to dominate and then move like someone who has already won. And understand that this is not a one-time decision. This is a daily war. Every morning the old doubts regroup. Every morning the old smallness tries to reclaim its territory. Every morning, without fail, you have to choose the image again. You have to show up for that 5 minutes in silence, and you have to remind yourself who you are, not who you were, not who someone told you that you were. Not who your bank account says you are right now, but who you have decided to be. That decision has to be made fresh every single day, not because the decision is weak, but because the mind needs to be fed. The fire needs fuel. You do not light the fire once and walk away and expect it to burn forever. You come back every morning and you put more wood on it. You tend it. You protect it from rain. And over time it grows into something so large that nothing can put it out. That is what happens to a person who thinks to dominate for long enough. They reach a point where the belief is no longer fragile, where it does not need daily reinforcement because it has become structural. It is in them the way bones are in them. You do not think about your skeleton, but it holds you up all day. The belief becomes like that. It holds everything up. It becomes the invisible architecture of every choice, every conversation, every risk, every morning. And from that place, truly, nothing can stop you. Everything that hurt you was just making you harder. Everything that tried to keep you down was just teaching your legs how to rise. You are not here to be average. You were never here to be average. Average is not your story. It never was, and it never will be. Domination is your story. There is a man you have not yet met. He is not far. Not in another life. Not in another body. He is the version of you that God already finished designing. The one that has been waiting inside you while you kept choosing the easier road. He woke up one day and stopped negotiating with himself. He chose hard things when easy ones were right there. He built in silence. No applause, no audience, no one asking how it was going. He is real. He is reachable. But he will not show up because you waited long enough, or wanted it badly enough, or prayed on Sunday and forgot by Monday. He comes through one thing and one thing only: becoming. And becoming is the hardest thing you will ever do, because it forces you to face the one enemy you have spent the most time running from: yourself. The truth most people never say out loud is this: most men spend their entire lives as a reduced version of who God made them to be. A fraction, a shadow. Not because life was too cruel or the odds were too high, because somewhere along the way they made peace with less. They stopped pushing. They told themselves they were being realistic when they were just being comfortable. They started things and stopped. Started again. Stopped again. After a while, the stopping became so normal they stopped noticing. They called it trying. But trying without follow-through is just a more acceptable word for quitting. And the years went by. The man they were supposed to become kept sliding further out of reach. Not in one dramatic moment. Quietly. Daily. The way a man disappears from his own life without ever deciding to. Do not let that happen to you. Underneath every decision you delay, every effort you avoid, every night you hand over to distraction instead of direction, there is a question living there. It does not announce itself. You can go weeks without hearing it clearly, but it is always there. Who are you actually becoming? Not who you tell people you are working toward. Not the version you describe when someone asks about your goals. Who are you becoming through what you do, when no one is watching? Because your soul knows the answer even when your mind refuses to look. God is watching too, and the life He prepared for you is not unlocked by your intentions. It is unlocked by your becoming. The shape of a man's destiny is not determined in the big visible moments. It is determined in the small ones, the ones that feel too routine to matter, the ones you keep telling yourself can wait until tomorrow. And tomorrow turns into a year, and a year turns into the life you ended up with, instead of the one God placed inside you. The small choice in front of you right now is not small. It is the whole thing. Treat it that way. Every single time. What nobody tells a young man is that who he is right now is not who he is locked into being. The version of you that procrastinates, that shrinks from difficulty, that says yes to comfort every time it competes with effort. That is not your identity. It is your training. The accumulated result of thousands of small choices that kept saying the same thing. Not now. Not today. This can wait. And you can untrain it. Not by reading about it. By doing something different. The man God built you to be does not arrive through good intentions or strong feelings, or a plan you write down and revisit every January. He is built the same way the weaker version of you was built. Through daily repetition. The difference is just which direction the repetition moves. You can choose the direction. That choice is always available. This is one of the most important truths a man can accept. You are not a fixed thing. You are not a finished product. You are a process, and processes can be redirected. The soul God gave you is not limited by the habits you developed before you knew better. It is capable of far more than the life you have been living suggests. The question is whether you will give it the chance to prove that, starting now, not someday, now. The hardest part of becoming is accepting that something has to die first, not dramatically. You are not being asked to blow up your life or make a grand announcement, but the old version of you, the one that runs on comfort, that negotiates with discipline, that has built elaborate explanations for why his limitations are just personality rather than untested habits. That version has to step down. He has been running things for a while. He will not go without a fight. He will tell you the timing is off. He will point to your circumstances as evidence that change is unrealistic right now. He will remind you of every time you tried before and it did not stick. Listen to none of it. Not because those arguments are never grounded in anything real, because they have one purpose and one purpose only, to keep you exactly where you are. The old version of you survives on your inaction. Stop feeding him. There is a pattern in the lives of men who never quite become who God designed them to be. The pattern is this: they spend their lives reacting. They wake up reacting to how they feel. They move through the day reacting to whatever comes at them. They go to sleep having been carried by the current of impulse and habit, and whatever was easiest in each moment, with no real hand on the wheel. And they call this a life. It is not. It is drifting. Drifting can feel peaceful for a while. There is no resistance when you go with the current. But a man who drifts has not chosen his direction. His direction chose him. And the destination of a drifting man is never where he intended to go. Never where God intended either. Ownership is the opposite. Ownership means you decide, each morning, what kind of man will move through this day, and then you actually become that man for those next 16 hours. Not perfectly, decisively, because there is a difference between a man who is moved by life and a man who moves through it with intention. The world can feel that difference. God designed you for the second kind of man. The question is whether you are living like it. Look at your actual life right now, not the version in your head where everything is about to get better once a few things shift. The version that actually exists. What did you do with this morning? What goes into your mind during the first hour you are awake? What are you avoiding right now that you know you should face? What have you promised yourself so many times that the promise has lost all weight? Be honest. No performance, no excuses, just truth. Because truth is where power begins. A man who cannot be honest about where he stands cannot navigate toward anywhere better. He is trying to read a map without knowing where he is. Most men resist this inventory, looking clearly at the gap between where they are and where God called them to be is painful, so they stay blurred. They live in the general feeling of working on themselves without specifying what that means on an ordinary Tuesday. But blurred self-assessment is just comfortable self-deception with a better name. See yourself clearly. It is the first real act of respect you can offer to the man you are trying to build. Becoming requires building something that does not yet exist, and building things that do not yet exist is uncomfortable. That discomfort is not a warning, it is a signal. The resistance you feel when you try to grow is proof the process is working. You do not make iron strong by leaving it somewhere gentle. You put it in fire. The fire hurts. What it produces does not. Every area of your life where you feel the friction of genuine effort is an area where you are actually changing. The areas where everything feels smooth and easy are the areas where you stopped. This is not complicated, but it is routinely escaped because discomfort is convincing. It feels like a sign to stop when it is actually proof that you started. God uses pressure the same way a forge uses heat. He does not send it to destroy you. He sends it to reveal you, to burn away what was never real and leave behind what is. The man you are becoming was always inside you. The discomfort is just the process of him being uncovered. Do not run from the fire. It is working for you, not against you. Here is where men get stuck. They know all of this. They know they should push through the discomfort. They know they should do the work instead of waiting to feel like it. They know discipline builds the life they want. They know it, and then they pick up the phone anyway. They know it, and sleep in anyway. They know it, and skip the hard thing for the 14th day in a row, because today is a little worse than yesterday, and tomorrow will probably be better. The knowing means nothing without the movement. Knowledge that stays in your head and never reaches your hands is just elaborate self-deception. You can feel informed and stay completely stuck at the same time. Close that gap. The gap between what you know and what you actually do. That gap is where your potential is dying. That gap is where destiny keeps waiting and never gets answered. God placed something inside every man that knows exactly who he is supposed to be. It does not speak in full sentences. It does not give instructions. It shows up as a feeling, a tension, a restlessness that sits underneath the surface of the ordinary day. You notice it most in the quiet moments. The end of a day you know you wasted. The middle of the night when something has you awake. The gap between who you showed up as today and who you can feel pulling at you from somewhere further ahead. Most men drown that voice. They get busy the moment it appears. They find something to watch, something to scroll, anything that keeps the silence from getting loud enough to demand something. But that voice is not there to make you feel bad. It is your soul trying to align you with your purpose. Sit with it. It stops being uncomfortable when you finally decide to listen. A man does not transform in the big moments. He transforms in the small ones, the unwitnessed ones, the ones that happen at 5 in the morning, with no one around to know whether he got up or went back to sleep. The ones that happen in the afternoon when he chooses the thing he should do over the thing he wants to do, for the 100th time, with nobody keeping score. The ones that happen in the evening when the weaker version of him says he has done enough, and the stronger one says not yet. What the world eventually sees, the composure, the results, the presence that makes people pay attention, is just the surface. Underneath it is a private history of unremarkable moments, handled the right way, stacked over and over, for long enough that they compounded into something visible. A man is built in the quiet, not on a stage. This is why the men who try to build a public image before building a private foundation always eventually crack. The image has nothing real underneath it. But the man who has spent years in the quiet, doing the right thing when the wrong thing was easier, when no one would have known, when God was the only witness, that man has a foundation that does not move. His public life is just an expression of what already exists inside him. Build what is inside first. Everything else follows from that. The war that matters is not outside you. Every man eventually learns this, either through wisdom or through years of effort spent fighting the wrong enemy. You can change your city and bring your old patterns. You can change your job and carry the same avoidance. You can change your circle, your environment, your circumstances, and wake up still the same man, because the problem was never out there. It was always the man doing the reacting, the man with the undisciplined mind, the man who has never learned to govern himself. And here is the spiritual truth underneath that. God cannot build a kingdom on a man who has not learned to rule himself first. The work is always inward. When that work is done, the outside begins to reflect it, not before. An undisciplined man in good conditions will find a way to waste them. A disciplined man in hard conditions will find a way to build. The condition of the man is the only variable that matters. Everything else is just terrain. What the internal battle actually looks like, this is worth being specific about, because it sounds large and dramatic when people talk about it, and in reality it looks nothing like that. It looks like keeping the commitment you made to yourself when it is inconvenient, doing the work before you feel ready, which is most of the time, holding a standard for yourself in private that nobody requires you to hold, sitting in the discomfort of something difficult long enough for it to become familiar, then normal, then just another part of what you do. No drama, no audience, no moment where everything shifts in a way you can feel. Just a slow, private accumulation of times you chose the harder thing and nobody knew, until one day you look in the mirror and the man looking back is genuinely different from the one who started. Your soul knows. Before your mind catches up, your soul knows. God does not hand destiny to men who cannot govern themselves. This is not cruelty. It is wisdom. A man who has never learned to govern himself cannot govern anything else. Not a family, not a business, not a purpose, not a legacy. The season of private building, the years that look from the outside like nothing is happening, is rarely nothing. It is the foundational work. Character being made load-bearing. Habits being established before anything of weight is placed on top of them. If what you believe you are destined for has not arrived, the question is not why is it taking so long. The question is whether the man who would receive it right now is ready to carry it. Become that man. Then the question answers itself. The delay is not rejection. The delay is preparation. Say that again. The delay is preparation. History is full of men who received great responsibility before they were built for it and were broken by the weight. God is not withholding from you. He is building you for what He is about to place on you. Trust the season. Keep building. There is a voice inside you that has been making excuses for years. You need to understand what that voice is. It sounds like reason, sounds like wisdom. It presents itself as the careful, measured part of you that knows when to push and when to wait. And it always, every time, votes for waiting. It tells you your situation is different, that the advice that works for other men does not apply here, that you would start if the conditions were slightly better, less stressful, more certain, better resourced. It has been saying this for years. You have built a life around listening to it. Look at that life. Look at the shape it took, because that voice did not protect you. It just kept you comfortable while time moved and destiny waited. It does not sound like fear. That is what makes it dangerous. Fear is recognizable, but this voice sounds like prudence. It wraps avoidance in language that sounds sensible. The way through it is not argument. It is action. You do not debate the voice. You move before it finishes its sentence. You keep moving, and eventually it loses credibility with the part of you that is watching what actually happens when you ignore it. The man you are becoming does not wait for motivation. This is one of the most important things to understand. Motivation is a feeling. Feelings come and go. They have very little relationship to what needs doing on any given day. Waiting for motivation is like waiting for good weather before you decide to go outside. You will wait a long time and miss the days that were actually fine. The men who build things worth building are not the ones who felt inspired more often than everyone else. They are the ones who stopped requiring the feeling before they moved. They learned to move first. The feeling, the sense of capability, of purpose, of momentum, follows movement. It does not precede it. You do not need to feel ready. You need to move. The readiness comes from the moving. This is why faith and discipline are not so different. Faith is moving towards something you cannot yet see clearly. Discipline is doing the right thing before you feel like it. Both require action before confirmation. Both are built by men who learn to trust the process more than the feeling. A man waiting for motivation is a man asking to be comfortable before he starts. That is not how destinies get built. That is how they stay unbuilt. Discipline, in the life of a man who has genuinely built it, does not feel like it did when he was first forcing himself into it. Early on it is friction. Early on it requires will, something to fight through each time. But somewhere in the repetition something shifts. The behavior stops requiring negotiation and starts being just how he operates. It is no longer a choice he has to win against his own resistance. It becomes his default. This is what people mean when they say discipline becomes identity. It is not a metaphor. It is what happens when you do something enough times that it stops being effortful and starts being automatic. You are not trying to grit your way through discipline forever. You are trying to do it long enough that it becomes who you are. The early stage is hard. The later stage is just a way of being. And a man whose way of being is disciplined is a man God can trust with more. Look at the men around you who have settled into a comfortable life that no longer challenges them. They are not miserable. That is what makes it dangerous. They are fine. Fine is the most effective trap in existence, because fine does not demand you leave. Fine does not hurt enough to push you out. Fine just sits there, quietly, taking years off the clock while you mistake the absence of pain for the presence of progress. Real peace is not the same as the quiet of a life where nothing is required of you. Real peace, the peace that comes from God, lives underneath effort. It is what you feel when you know you are moving in the right direction even when moving is hard. The men who have settled are not bad men, but there is a version of them that was possible and did not get built. And in the quiet moments they know it. That ghost grows heavier with every year that passes. Do not feed that ghost. Become the man instead. The private battles are where all of it actually happens. Whatever a man has built that is worth anything, the self-control, the character, the steadiness under pressure, the results that other people eventually see, all of it has an underside nobody watched. The real history of it. The mornings he woke up and the building felt pointless, and he built anyway. The months where the effort produced nothing visible, and he kept going, not because he was certain it would work, but because stopping felt like the worst kind of failure. The moments between impulse and action, where he could have gone either way, and he chose the harder direction, for no reason anyone would ever applaud. These are the real materials. Everything visible is just what they eventually produced. When you are inside those private seasons, when the effort is real and the reward is absent, and the only witness to your discipline is God, it can feel like nothing is happening. But it is not disappearing. It is accumulating somewhere you cannot see yet. The private seasons are where depth is built, and depth is what makes everything else possible. You have almost certainly been around a man who carries himself differently. That quality, that weight, that sense of someone who has done real work on himself. What you feel when you are near him is the accumulated result of a private history you will never be shown. He was not born that way. He built it in moments nobody witnessed, seasons where the effort produced nothing obvious, nights where continuing felt irrational, days where the only reason he kept going was a conviction deep enough to survive the doubt. And somewhere in all of that, something that started as forced became natural. Natural became identity. Identity became the man standing in front of you. You are not looking at a different kind of person. You are looking at what happens when a person keeps moving long enough in the right direction. That is not closed to you. Your soul was designed for the same journey. God did not make that man for that life and leave you without the same capacity. He made you for a version of it too. Your version. The one that requires you to show up the way that man showed up. In the private, unseeable moments where the only witness is God, and the only reward is the man you are quietly becoming. The urge to stop comes for every man. It comes hardest when you have gone far enough to actually be in something real. Easy things do not produce a serious temptation to quit. The temptation to stop is proportional to how much the thing actually requires. So when you feel it, and you will, understand what it is. It is not your instinct telling you that you went the wrong direction. It is the old version of you, fighting for his life. He knows that if you keep going, he is finished. That terrifies the part of you that was built on comfort and habit and the familiar. Every day you push past that feeling, he gets weaker. Every time you keep your word to yourself past the point where breaking it would have been easy, you rebuild the internal reliability that most men quietly destroy over years of small surrenders. And that reliability, once it starts being rebuilt, becomes self-reinforcing. Every time you follow through, the next follow-through gets slightly easier. Every time you stay past the point where quitting felt reasonable, you shift the baseline of what reasonable means for you. This is how character forms. Not in one great moment, in hundreds of unremarkable ones. Here is what a single day in the life of a man who is genuinely becoming actually looks like. He wakes up when he said he would. No negotiation, no bargaining with the alarm. He wakes up, he puts something worth keeping into his mind before the noise of the world gets in, before the phone, before the scroll, before the world tells him what to feel. Then he works, not when conditions improve. With the conditions that exist, he faces the thing he has been putting off. Not all of it, just one honest movement toward it, because one honest movement builds the path. He does not demand recognition for doing what he was supposed to do. He rests when rest is genuine, and stops when he said he would. Then the next morning he does it again. No self-congratulation when it goes well, no collapse when it is harder than expected, just the steady, daily, private practice of becoming a man who does what he says. The reason this escapes most men is not that they do not understand it. It is that they underestimate every ordinary moment they are in. The Tuesday where nothing dramatic is happening, where there is no particular reason today should be different from yesterday, and the man still makes the better choice anyway. That Tuesday is where the man is built. Not the big day, the ordinary one. Your attention is the most valuable thing you own. And you are living in a moment when more money and intelligence and engineering has been pointed at stealing it than at any point in history. The phone in your pocket was designed by people who study the psychology of compulsion for a living. Every app on it was built to hold your eyes slightly longer than you meant to give. This is not an accident. A man whose attention has been fractured by that, who starts things and cannot finish them, who is always half somewhere else, who has lost the ability to sit with one thing long enough for it to become something. cannot build. You cannot build anything real with half your attention. Your attention is what God gave you to steward your life with. Guard it. Guard it like your destiny is made of it. Because it is. The enemy knows this. He does not need to destroy you directly. He just needs to keep you distracted. Distracted men do not build. Distracted men do not pray. Distracted men do not hear the quiet voice inside them that is trying to guide them toward their purpose. They are too busy, always consuming, never becoming. The man you are called to be requires your full attention to be built, not a portion, not the leftover minutes after everything else has taken its share. Your best hours, your clearest focus, given intentionally to the things that actually matter. That is not a small ask, but the life on the other side of it is not small either. Measuring yourself against other men is one of the most reliable ways to stay stuck and feel bad about it simultaneously. When you use another man as your standard, you are measuring your insides against his outsides, his position and not his path, his results and not his years, his surface and not the private history that produced it. The comparison will always mislead you in one direction or another, and neither direction is useful. The only honest measurement is the distance between who you were yesterday and who you are today. Are you more disciplined, more honest, more capable of facing what used to stop you? That is the race. Against yourself, against who you were. Run that race with everything you have. A man who is always looking sideways cannot look forward. He is spending energy monitoring a race that is not his to run, energy that belongs in the building. Put your head down. Focus on your own ground. That is a far simpler and far more honest way to live. There will be stretches, sometimes months, sometimes longer, when the work produces no visible result. The discipline is in place, the effort is real, but nothing seems to be moving. These seasons filter out the men who are genuinely building from the men who are performing the idea of building. The performer needs the scoreboard to update or he loses faith. The builder understands that what he is doing in the invisible season is compounding underground, building pressure that will eventually express itself, but not on a timetable he gets to set. He keeps the standard in the absence of reward. He does not require proof before he continues. He continues, and the proof comes later, and it is always larger than it looked like it would be from inside the silence. Keep building. The silence is not empty. It is where God finishes what you started. Every prophet was tested in the wilderness before he walked into his purpose. Every man God trusted with something great endured a season that looked from the outside like nothing, like delay, like forgotten. But it was not forgotten. It was formation. The season of silence is not God withholding from you. It is God working in ways you cannot see yet. Keep your hands in the work. Keep your soul clean. Keep your standard where it belongs. The season will turn. It always turns. It has to. The standard you hold for yourself cannot come from what the world asks of you. The world always asks for less. It accepts your lowest consistent output and calls it normal. The people around you will accommodate your limitations without challenging them, because that is easier for them too. The standard has to come from the version of you that exists when you are completely alone and completely honest. The version that knows exactly what you are capable of and exactly how far below that you are operating. That version has a standard. Set it. Not in a loud way, in the private daily way. Each morning, hold it in front of you and move toward it with whatever the day allows. Not perfectly, persistently. These are different things. Perfection is not possible. Persistence is always a choice. The standard God wrote into you when He designed you, that standard has not changed. The world may have told you it is unrealistic. The old version of you may have buried it under years of compromise. But it is still there. It has always been there. And every time you reach for it instead of settling beneath it, you are not just building a better life, you are being faithful to the purpose you were given. That is worth everything. The way a standard quietly lowers is worth understanding, because it never happens in a moment you can point to. You never decide to want less. You decide that this season is too hard to hold the full line, and that a small adjustment is reasonable. Then the next season brings another adjustment, and so on, until you look up years later, and the standard you are holding is a pale version of the one you started with, and you cannot remember when the gap opened up. This is how men drift into smaller lives. Not through disaster, through an accumulation of small, sensible-sounding surrenders. The answer is not perfect consistency. No man achieves that. The answer is a short return time. When you drift, come back quickly. Without drama, without excessive guilt, without the performance of self-criticism that makes a man feel like he is doing something about his failure when he is really just delaying the return. Come back, keep going. The moments that build a man are the ones that feel insignificant while they are happening. The Tuesday he got up, the Thursday he did the thing he had been avoiding, the Sunday night he kept his word to himself when breaking it would have cost him nothing visible and no one would have known. These are the molecules of a life. 10,000 of them made the right way, and you have something real. Made the wrong way, you have a life made of 10,000 small concessions to comfort, each of which felt like nothing, all of which together became the shape of who you ended up being. There is nothing neutral in the small moments. Every one of them is either building the man or wearing him down. Every one is a vote cast toward the destiny God placed in him or away from it. God is counting even when no one else is. Vote correctly, every single day, especially when no one is watching. Something changes in a man when he decides, not emotionally, not in the heat of a strong feeling, but in the bones, that he is no longer available to be the lesser version of himself. You can feel it in a man who has made that decision. He is not louder, not harder, he is steadier. There is a quality of ground to him, a sense that he has been somewhere real inside himself and came back different. This is not personality, not charisma. It is the result of a man having faced the truth about himself, decided to do something about it, and actually done it, repeatedly, privately, without an audience. That steadiness is not something you are born with. It is something that gets built, and God sees the building before anyone else does. He watches the private decisions. He records what the world never notices, and when the time comes, he places on that man exactly the weight the man was built to carry. People around that man can feel something has shifted. They cannot always name it, but they feel it. His presence carries a different kind of authority, not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that is only available to a man who has done the real work on himself in private and is no longer performing anything. That authority is earned. It cannot be faked, and the only path to it is the one you are either walking or avoiding right now. When a man begins to close the gap between who he is and who God made him to be, something happens to the things around him. The things that used to feel necessary start feeling hollow. The escapes that once offered relief reveal themselves as delays. The conversations that once felt comfortable start belonging to an earlier chapter. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. When you move toward your actual purpose, the things that were filling the space where purpose was supposed to live start losing their grip. And in the space they leave, something else arrives. Clarity, a direction that does not depend on how you feel on any given morning. A kind of quiet authority that does not need to be performed, because it is just what is present in a man who has done the actual work on himself. This is what becomes available. Not fame, not applause. Alignment with the life God always intended for you. And that alignment is worth more than any version of comfort you gave up to get there. The final enemy is not a habit, or a fear, or a pattern from your past. The final enemy is satisfaction with the progress you have already made. The version of you that looks at how far you have come and uses it as a reason to stop pushing. Becoming is not a destination, it is a direction. There is no arrival point. There is no moment where God says you are done growing and can put the work down. The man you are building right now is the foundation for the man you must become next year. A man who stops growing does not hold still. He begins to shrink, slowly, quietly, in ways he will not notice until enough ground has been lost that recovering it costs more than continuing would have. Keep going, not out of anxiety, not out of restlessness, out of faithfulness. The potential God placed in you was not placed there to be left half-used. It was placed there for a reason, and you owe it to that reason to keep building. Find the places in your life where you have been comfortable too long, where the standard has not moved in months, where you have stopped expecting more of yourself because what you are producing feels like enough. Those are the next places, not to destroy what has been built, to build further, into the territory where the resistance lives, where the next version of you is waiting to be inhabited. Answer that call, with a decision, with an action, with the same action the next day, until the man who started this and the man living it are two different people who share the same name. That distance from your old self is not loss, it is the whole point. And it takes a particular kind of discipline to push forward from a position that is already decent. Crisis gives you urgency, fine gives you nothing. When things are fine, and the people around you are comfortable, and there is no pressure demanding change, the push has to come entirely from inside you, from the part of you that refuses to let the gap between what you are producing and what God designed you to produce become your permanent address. That internal drive, from a place of stability rather than desperation, is rare, and the men who carry it become something that no one around them saw coming. You already know what needs to happen. You have known for a while. There is no missing information that would finally make the picture clear enough to move. The clarity will not arrive before you start. It will arrive because you started. The man you are becoming does not require perfect conditions. He does not wait for certainty. He moves, and the moving produces the certainty, and the certainty produces more movement, and somewhere in the accumulation of that, the life God intended for you starts to come into focus. One step today, real and small and unglamorous. That is enough to begin. Not the whole staircase, just the very next step, the same step tomorrow, and the day after, until the steps stop feeling like steps and start feeling like ground.